Alrighty, welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Matt.
Yay! And we're now
Hey.
halfway through another marathon, technically. Well, the last one
Yeah.
hasn't come out yet, so we will be halfway through it, and then we won't be again.
And not
So,
halfway through it.
yeah, that's fun.
But by the time the next one comes out, we'll be more than halfway through it.
That's true. Ah, what a weird roller coaster we ride. This is an interesting situation because we've like finished a trilogy. We're starting a new trilogy, but we're still all within the same saga. What fun. But yes, we are on Jurassic World. It came out June 12th, 2015, directed by Colin Trevorrow. Do you say Trevorrow or Trevorrow?
Navarro is my instinct,
I
but I
said
think that's just because I
Trevorrow.
want to say it like it's
Yeah, me
tomorrow.
too. Me too.
Tomorrow.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, starring Bryce Dallas Howard, Chris Pratt, Nick Robinson, uh, and we got Irfan Khan as Mr. Mizrani, Ty Simpkins. These like they look like adults in these pictures. It's because it's been 10
Yeah, I know.
years. And yeah, but a handful of other. We got Jake Johnson in there. This says Laura Dern. That's not correct. She's not in this movie.
No, she's
Google
not in
needs
this
to.
one.
Yeah, not at all. So yeah, Jurassic World. Almost, one could argue, the first real sequel to Jurassic Park in many, many ways, as the other
Post.
two are kind of following Site B in different stories, but this picks up on Isla Nublar. Here we are. We're back
Yeah.
again, 20 years later.
hmm I feel like so I guess maybe like first general impression,
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
like nobody gets confused. Not
mhm,
that anyone's listening,
of course.
but listener, if you are here, don't
Yeah.
get it confused. I love these films. I love
Yes.
this film in particular.
Yes.
There is there's a particular group of fan that I simply will not get along with, and those are the people who call this film and The Force Awakens shameless knockoffs that are just ripping off the
I
original
know.
film.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't stand that
No,
critique because
no.
clearly there are moments, or even like the general plot structure of these two films, that do kind of feel like an echo of the original, but they
Sure.
are doing it intentionally and they're
Hmm.
doing it in a way that provides variation on the theme. It's
Hmm.
like saying there was no original work done when in reality there's a ton of narrative work going into this film,
Hmm.
making it its own thing.
Hmm.
So I love this film and I'll protect
Yes.
this film. That said,
Yes.
I do feel like the three different openings are a little weird. um,
Three different
we
openings?
start we start with this surprisingly creepy, almost like
Ah,
alien-esque opening with the dinosaur
the
egg,
emergence.
which, yeah, very cool.
Mhm.
I like, the beginnings, egg hatching, the threat presence is there. I get it, right? But none of the other films have dropped us so quickly into the dinosaur world of things. They sort of like introduce it to us
Ah,
through consequences
I see.
first.
I see.
Like, I kind of like that. This is way more like, look at the dinosaur.
Mhm.
Um, but then they also hard cut to the opening with the kids, and we
Mhm.
get to meet the kids first of all of our main cast, and it almost feels like a family drama for a second.
Mhm.
Like it's heavily focusing on the fact that the kids are getting rushed out of the house, and it feels very different from the other one. And I think what they're trying to go for is like, remember, this is where we're going, this is where we are right now, and they're trying to like set up a contrast so you kind of understand the growth and how these two worlds collide and that sort of thing. I don't think they pull it off. I think it just feels like two different openings for the film.
I disagree. I totally disagree.
You disagree? Okay, go for it.
150%. I think the creepy opening does well to establish the if Jurassic Park is like a donut, the cream
Mhm.
filling is just graphic limb ripping horror wrapped in a beautiful sci-fi story. But like at its core, the story that Jurassic Park is really based on, the essence of the books, it is just horror. So to start with that, I think is kind of fun. It also sets up a little bit of a oh shit moment later, which is like we go into it knowing there are two. It's like, well, actually there's not because it's so fucking psychotic. It ate the other one. So, but then like
Yeah,
to
true.
begin with the family, I I kind of like that we get to spend a little more time with the characters that we're gonna watch scream for the next 2 hours. We also we are maintaining the trend of the only reason these children are on the island is because their parents are getting divorced. Like, they're really doubled down on it this time. It's really a plot point this time around. But, like, isn't that fun? That's 4 movies. That's 4 movies in a row. Consistent.
Cannot escape it.
I really do enjoy, because especially when I get into it and I allow myself to get caught up in the music and the fun, to go from home to the airport, to the boat, to the train, to go through the gate, to get to the hotel, for the doors to open, and we see the park for the first time actually functioning. It's up and running. This thing that we've watched the movie now for 20 years, and it's always been a dream, and now it's here. Jurassic World is actually functioning. It's actually a thing. I love the way they do the opening. There's a couple of nitpicks here or there, whatever. Like, people pointed out when it came out that the gate was CGI instead of a practical effect like it was in the first film. That's a consistent thing in this movie, which we'll talk about later when we get to nitpicks.
Yeah.
But I am very much of the mind the opening is fantastic. We get to see it through the eyes of Gray especially. We get to be in the fun. But we also, we have that kind of cynicism as well through Zach, which is, I think, fun. Like, the movie is kind of talking about that a little bit too, with the world's perspective on the dinosaurs in Jurassic World, but we also kind of have a fan perspective on that going into this a little bit too, and I really do enjoy it. And
Gray is the closest thing we have to a paleontologist in this film.
That is
like,
also
sure,
there
are there are people who are actively working with the dinosaurs. Don't get me wrong. Owen is our primary example of this, and really a lot of our characters do daily work with dinosaurs. So, like, maybe it's kind of a weird statement.
Right.
But when it comes to the love of dinosaurs, just because, look at these really cool things, the mystery of it, the fun of it. Yeah, it's great. It's all great. Yeah. Nobody else in the film has that kind of wonder. Nope. Kind of Zach every now and then, but he's like, he gets to play the cynical teenager a lot. So the only person walking into this film being like, it's a dinosaur.
It's a dinosaur. Yeah. And I love it. I really appreciate it. 'Cause it's funny that Claire says, these days, children look at a stegosaurus like it's an elephant at the city zoo. And I can't help but be like, that's insane. But also, if it did exist, it would probably happen to a certain extent.
I think it's important to note, like, I'm not crazy about how we get to the park and it's just all there. I feel like maybe that's a personal preference. I don't think it's necessarily a writing weakness. It's probably actually a strong choice. Just be like, and look, the park has been completed and it's functioning and working, and it has been for a while now, right? Like, that's probably technically a story writing strength. I wanted to see that happen. Anyway, the fact that the park is not only up and running, but up and running in a way that is accessible to families and not just the ultra wealthy, I thought was a really nice touch, because that is what John Hammond wanted, right? And like, we do get a little bit of the commentary on like dreaming versus reality, and sort of like the desire to have nature work for you rather than recognizing that you are a part of nature. Like, all that's present in the film still, but it also, like the original film, gives kind of recognition to the fact that, yeah, no, if we could have a park with dinosaurs in it, it would be awesome. Maybe not great, maybe kind of a bad idea, but admittedly, everyone would love that.
Oh, yeah.
And you get to see it come to life with Jurassic World. It is genuinely cool the way they get to kind of actually realize the park.
Yeah.
So, I like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to stay focused, because there's so many things I want to talk about with this movie, because I really do think I think in general it is a good movie, if not a really good movie. I think there's a lot of fun to be had. I think there's more nuance, honestly, than some people might give it credit for. I think it plays with the horror really well. It gets back to the message that Jurassic Park is telling us, but we don't really walk away with that message, that genetic power is terrifying and we're playing with it too much. Like, there's so much about this movie that I love. I love the characters. I really do. I love Claire, because she is like the mom from Jurassic Park 3, but done well. She has no business being in the Survivor. She is a businesswoman. She is upper management. She's, all that. But then she gets thrown into this adventure and she has no business being there. But she's aware of it a little bit, and she's got the mission to help her nephews, and she's not complaining the same way that the mom did. Like, I like her. I like the arc that she has over this trilogy, which we'll talk about more and more. I like Owen a lot, which I want to circle back to because it's a little uncomfy because I don't love Chris Pratt, and I don't want to get into a position where I'm praising Chris Pratt. I want to come back to that because the kids are fine. If anything, they might actually have the most boring parts throughout this movie. Like when they're out like trying to get back, and we're spending time with them fixing a Jeep. It's like, okay, I really don't care about this. There's so many more interesting things going on, really. And then Mr. Mizrahi. I love Mr. Mizrahi.
I love Mizrahi. He's a great addition to the film, and if you're not paying attention, he could really fly under the radar. But I think he's actually a really important character to understand.
Yes, he's so. For one, he's genuinely funny with how he's trying to get his license, and he's so chill. He's embraced Hammond's, spare no expense. Like, he's clearly a rich dude. He's out of touch a little bit, but he seems to have a genuinely good heart, which I do appreciate. And he's also, like, points across the board movie. We have smart characters. And Ms. Ronnie...
Yes, competency is everywhere in this film.
It is. It is.
Because, like, usually when you're creating a horror film, a thriller film, or a monster film, the first thing you do is you put someone who is not competent or not thoughtful in charge so that the monster can get everybody.
And the snooty rich people are suspect number one in that regard. Very often. They don't care as long as they can, make a buck, whatever. And like I said, he is out of touch in general. But he takes one look at this terrifying new dinosaur and he's like, I would like a second opinion. I would like this expert who is intelligent, who might know more than me, to take a look at this. I would like for you to go talk to him, please. He's also not an asshole,
That's the
right?
one thing
he's
that
polite.
John Hammond never does, which is I'm going to get a safety check on this, right? The fact that he's a little behind the eight ball is not really his fault because he didn't know that it was happening, right? He's a responsible version of John Hammond. Maybe not the most responsible because he did make a dinosaur park, but he is a responsible version of John Hammond.
I really do like when Hodgkins is trying to convince everyone of his plan. He's like, let me make something explicitly clear to you. No velociraptors are going to be released on this. Like, the fact that he understands how dangerous this stuff actually can be. Like, he doesn't consider it for a second because he's a smart character. I love it. I honestly, my favorite or second favorite part of this whole movie is the confrontation with Wu. I love that Wu's back in general, honestly. I think that's fantastic to bring him back. Because, he's a character that kind of flies under the radar in the first movie if you're really not paying attention. He's the dude, man. When Alan and Ian, whoever's like, this is how you play God, this is the God. This is the guy. And, in the book, it's way more clear. The movie sometimes just kind of makes it look like he's one of the scientists. Now, he's the scientist. And I like that that's made more clear here. I like the confrontation, and I love the line, monster's a relative term, to a canary, a cat's a monster, we're just used to being the cat. And I also like how finally, in this franchise, we reference how if their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different. To acknowledge that this has always been fiction. Chef's kiss. Some might say it's a little late, but chef's kiss.
With the bird at the beginning of the film, you first think it's a dinosaur foot, it's actually just a bird. It's clearly a CGI bird, but it's a bird. And so, I think you're right. And kind of on that note, I mean, I was it's at the end of the film, but Dr. Wu as sort of this, I guess, mad scientist villain, the engine of the park, and then he's also maybe a little involved in the black market version of what this science could do, right? I love the way they wrote the character. We don't get a lot of him, but it's very clear from the conversations and the bits that we do get of him that he is classic mad scientist in the sense that he is fully aware that what he is doing will cost lives, but he's doing it anyway because he kind of wants to see if he can.
It's all for the science.
And then I also love in his argument that he does kind of have a point. Like that line that he says about the cats and the canaries, like just because we're used to being the predators doesn't mean that we have never been prey or won't be prey.
Right.
And you could argue that's even true without dinosaurs. You put just a man in the middle of the jungle and see how long he survives.
You're not the cat anymore, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Dr. Wu as a character, the way he's written, adds a layer of nuance to the conversation that these films are having about how we're playing God and what we're doing. He is aware that it's going to cost lives, but he thinks progress is going to happen no matter what, and he wants to be the one that does it. Right. And it's not even that he cares to try and like curb the effects. He just wants to see if he can. And he doesn't see anything morally wrong with that because he sees the world as a naturalistic, dog eat dog world. He doesn't see anything morally wrong with that because he sees that's how it works in nature, which is an interesting element to add to this conversation about like what we as humans have the responsibility to do for either our own safety or for the rights of the natural world around us. I mean, it's very interesting to add that voice into the conversation. I don't think he's morally correct. Like, I think Dr. Wu is a villain, but I think he kind of wins that argument against
He may be more sinister than we even know, technically, too. So when you do a little reading, not in the books, but like online, he is fully aware of what the military, what InGen wants to do as far as militarizing dinosaurs. He
figured.
There's a little bit of confusion, I think, with how he reacts to Mizrahi describing what the Indominus can do. Because as far as I can tell, he knew what it could do, or he hoped that's what it could do.
I think he knew about everything except for the ability to hide his thermal signature. I think that was a pleasant surprise. He was like, I can make money off of that.
I interpreted that as he hoped it could, but didn't know if it would. And that was like, oh, it worked. It worked.
Okay.
It actually did it. Because there's a little bit of, well, I'm sorry, I misspoke. There's a lot of bullshittery in how he talks about what's in the Indominus Rex. Like, oh, well, we added cuttlefish genes to help it survive an accelerated growth rate. I had no inkling at all that its skin would be able to change color. And, okay, so you also added tree frog DNA to help it survive a tropical climate. Didn't do that for the T-Rex. If you pay attention as well, they specifically designed an environment for the T-Rex because it didn't live in a tropical climate. So that's bullshit. You have the means and the resources to make any habitat you want on this island. And then, okay, so all that's good and fine. So why did you give it the ability to detect heat, Dr. Wu? Why the pit viper? Why that? You wanna elaborate on that? So I have a whole bit I want to do later actually about that. But before we go too far, I do appreciate, though also acknowledge the hypocrisy of them joking about Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex.
Yep.
Tostitos Dons and Pepsi stores. It's like, okay, I appreciate what you're saying, Lowry. I love you, Lowry. I get it. But you just saying it in the movie is an ad. Like, so...
Well, and I think it's fair to say that the product placement in this film is crazy.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look when you're in the park, you are seeing some kind of brand.
Yeah.
It's like you're seeing even like personalities, which, like, to be fair, that's kind of what it would be like if you were at the park. Like, there would be a Starbucks, you know, there would be, people would have stores and brands would pay big bucks to be a part of that experience. So, like, I'm not saying that it's a weakness in the film, but it does definitely stand out, and it adds a whole new layer to sort of, like, I guess, the commercialization of the park and the zoo and just sort of nature in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, every time you go up the boulevard, there's another brand
Of course.
that you're looking at. It's the assistant, Katie McGrath, I don't know her character's name. Sissy?
Crap. My assistant.
It's not super important. She carries a Starbucks cup with the label out half the time. Like, it's, and that's not a big deal in the sense that, again, it's kind of realistic and the film probably made a good amount of money off of that, and that's business. But the fact that they then made it a plot point in the film
Uh-huh.
too.
It's
I
almost
don't know if
clever.
it makes it better or worse.
Yeah,
I don't. It's almost clever. Yeah, that's a good way to
because
put it.
if you're gonna
Yeah.
put product placement in your movie, you found a kind of fun way to do it. You made it a conversation, and you pointed out that it's dumb. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I'll kind
But
of
you still did it.
yeah, you still did it. I do like Lowry though. I love that he is the
Hmm.
exact opposite of Nedry. He's got the
Hmm.
chaotic, messy desk, but he respects the dinosaurs. He respects his work. He's this little skinny weirdo. I do wonder, was it because he wore the shirt? Is that a jinx? He wore the Jurassic Park
Oh.
shirt, and the day he wore the Jurassic Park shirt, the Jurassic Park stuff happened.
Okay, this is probably just me, and I'm piecing together two very different parts of the film in order to like feel like I'm validated on this. There's a character named Walsh in Firefly, and he is a pilot on a spaceship. I'm so sorry. This
Go
is
on.
a departure,
You're
but
fine.
he has on his like dash for his
Uh-huh.
spaceship, he has dinosaur toys that he lines up very similar to the way that Laurie's desk is lined up with.
Mhm.
And like that makes perfect sense for Larry to have that because he works at a dinosaur park and it's his desk. That does not need explanation. That's probably not a reference to anything. But Lynn Walsh, okay, well, spoilers if you've not seen all of Firefly.
Yeah, you're good.
Walsh dies by getting stabbed through the windshield of the spaceship, and later in the film,
that happens in this movie with the pterodactyls. Interesting.
I don't think it's intentional,
It could
but
be.
those two things very directly made me think about the character.
It could be.
And it's a nerdy film.
Oh yeah.
So
It
I
could
just
be.
kind of wonder if that was intentional
very
or
possible.
if it's
There
just
are-
me being crazy.
There are a shit ton of Easter eggs in this movie, which if we have time, I might talk about some of the big ones. But so I could see that being very, very intentional. So good catch if that's there, you know. So there's actually
It could just be being crazy.
I've done that too though. I've seen Easter eggs that aren't Easter eggs, but let's say it is for fun. But before I guess we go anywhere else, I would like to talk about Owen for just a second. I don't want to talk about it too long.
Sure. And then I want to talk about Claire just for a second.
Yes, of course.
Too.
Yes.
So go for
I think it's totally fair to first assume that Owen is like a cocky, arrogant dude, right? And I think part of that is because it's Chris Pratt, and every other character he plays is like that. This was right after Star-Lord, and he basically looks the same. But when you really, really watch it and pay attention, it's just not so. Like, the most arrogant character is Claire. Everything Owen does is technically right because the way it's, and I really don't want to praise Pratt here. I'm just saying, like, the way this character was written, it would have been better for someone like Keanu Reeves or something, because like there are characters that carry that I am a genuine badass, but it doesn't matter and I don't think about it. And like that's him, you know, he does that. Because in this movie, our character that we are presented with on paper is this smart Navy man whose background is training animals. He used to train like dolphins and stuff when you get into like the lore. He cares about the animals. He cares about people. He is a badass, but like not superhero level. You know, like he's a little playful and he's cocky, but like he only teases Claire a couple of times, and they have a history as well. And then I do genuinely like the back and forth of like, if I was out on a date in Central America and my date was mad that I wore shorts and she brought an itinerary, like I'd be like, okay, this is a little weird. Like they have
It's a bad first date.
It is like, a bad first date, and it's of the information we're presented, she's 80% of why that was a bad date. Now we don't have all the information, I will say, but like he doesn't do anything that is so unbelievable, so insanely stupidly macho, that just as a character he's really cool, and I really like his character. And I think that's where some of the nuance is, because his whole thing is respecting the animals, respecting the bond that they have, and like just taking this place seriously, acknowledging their intelligence, and not like he wants nothing to do with this whole like use velociraptors as weapons when Claire, who just threw him out of the control room for being right a second time, like he's on a roll of just being right and being told to fuck off, and then people die because no one will listen to him. She comes to him needing help because 2 kids are lost, and he's all business. He's just in it. So I wanted to appreciate Owen, not Mr. Pratt, but Owen, because Owen is an awesome character.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when I was watching it this time, I was noticing specifically the characterization of Owen and Claire. And I think this actually stands a little bit for Zach and Gray too. We get a little bit less of this with them because they're in an established relationship. The movie kind of makes an argument for Zach and Gray to be going through a character arc where like Zach is learning to care for Gray a little bit more. I think that's kind of dumb. I think it's pretty clear that Zach is caring for Gray since the beginning. He's just not doing it as intensively as he would 16, when he's in a survival situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like when they're on the train and Gray starts breaking down about the divorce situation.
He starts to comfort.
For one, I don't think Zach knew for sure until that moment. Yeah, and then when he finds out, he's not great at it, but he does try to comfort his brother a little bit, right? So his world just got rocked, and he's still trying to help his brother.
Excellent
and he's
point.
16. So I don't really think the film's like angle on like Zach can be mean sometimes. I don't think that's well done. I think they should just remove that line because it's pretty clear that even though they're brothers and they're not like maybe the most best of friends at the beginning, they're still like decent to each other, and the fact that they get closer throughout the film is trauma bonding, not because they become better people. Anyway,
excellent observation.
With Claire and Owen, I was a little confused at first because they're very strong characters, and they come into a world where strong characters are often simple because of the genre they're in. Action, adventure, arguably horror thriller, right? And you don't have a ton of time to develop those characters, so you usually go with a couple of set character traits and you just go with it. Like one of them is a strong survivalist and the other is a no silly businesswoman, all about the numbers, right? But they are inherently more well-rounded than that from the moment we meet them. And their relationship is not just like a will they, won't they for funsies. It's like they genuinely have kind of like, they don't like each other because of awkwardness more than anything.
And they're not that compatible. They're very different people.
Yeah. But like, they don't feel necessarily like they were made for each other. And I don't mean that in the romantic sense. I mean like, it feels like the two characters were created separately and then thrown in a situation together, and they're like, you know what, they would get together at the end of this. And I think that's because of Claire more than it is because of Owen. If one of them is the more of a love interest than the other, Owen is, I would argue, the love interest. Claire shows up in this film as sort of our starring role. And even though she doesn't get a, like, what's her name? Bryce Dallas something.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
That was Howard. She doesn't get as much promotional material as Chris Pratt did because I think fresh off the Star-Lord craze.
Right.
But she is the driving force through this film, and they do it without overly critiquing the person she was before. She does have to go through character development because she's too numbers based. In fact, she's so data and numbers driven that she is kind of incompatible with the people around her. She hasn't seen her nephews in 7 years, and she doesn't even clear a day to hang out with them, right? And they're at her place of work.
Everyone calls her out on it. Like,
Yeah. But to be fair, if you needed, let's say you have John Hammond, and you wanted to bring his world to reality rather than saying that it's going to fall apart, Claire is the person, the character you need to make that happen.
True.
Like, she is there because that person is needed for the park. She is all about the data and the reality of the situation, but she's also just egotistical enough to believe that she can actually pull off the impossible. So even though she is all about like the data and the numbers, she also is maybe not a dreamer per se, but a little bit delusional in the sense that she genuinely thinks she can do it.
She thinks she's in control. She thinks she has a handle on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So she lines up just enough with the John Hammond character to buy into the idea of a dinosaur park.
Right.
And then she's the opposite enough where she can actually make it a reality. And then you have to force that character into the consequences of the situation. And you put her next to a guy who's essentially like the coolest dog person ever. And of course, the lesson is going to be on relationship and realizing that you don't have total control over the situation. Like, and it's a really cool dynamic that I don't feel like was cooked up in a lab specifically for the lesson. It feels like the two characters were made for their situations, and rather than, you know, being mad at Claire for being data driven, they're like, no, this determination is what gets her through the film. She just has to shift her perspective a little bit, right? She doesn't have to change who she is fundamentally. She just has to switch her priorities a little. And if I love that.
If I could add to your paper here, I fully agree, and I noticed it as well as like her arc is just human experience. Because as soon as her nephews are in danger, or she kind of has to remember they're in danger. She also, to her credit, if we want to give her some credit, she does have an insane job to do.
She does have an insane job.
And the Indominus Rex is now broken out, and she goes back to the control room, and she's trying to like lead this sinking ship, you know. But as soon as she realizes that she needs to be taking care of them, that's her only goal, really, for like the rest of the movie. And she's a mess. She's genuinely into this. And then I do appreciate, I think it was important they put it in, when she's there when the Brontosaurus dies, I believe it's Brontosaurus, that is like that becomes a moment for like the rest of the trilogy. Agreed. That's really put into perspective. These are living, breathing things as she's with one when it dies. And I think
Small footnote.
Yes.
Small footnote on that. I think it's so important. It looked like a puppet. Was that a puppet?
That's the only practical effect of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's so important that moment was practical. Yep. It is so important that was practical.
Yep.
So
that's an amazing moment.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment in general to realize that this Indominus Rex is killing for sport. It's just a psychopathic monster. Oh my god. But yes, everything that Claire ends up doing, I enjoy, I appreciate. I think she has an arc. She's really the only one that has or needs an arc, if we're being really honest. So that's really cool. I like what her arc for the whole trilogy ends up being, which we'll have to talk about later because I think it's very interesting. But yeah, she's cool. Owen's cool. We are already halfway through, which is insane to me. There's so much more that I want to talk about. We're gonna have to talk about the Indominus Rex, so I think this might be a good time to do it. How do we feel about it? Where we at with the Indominus Rex?
This is going to be a whole conversation of its own. The CGI thing has to be a conversation on its own. Because I think, especially as the film ages, the seams become pretty visible. It doesn't look bad, per se, but like when I look at a lot of these creatures, I'm like, I know I'm looking at a CGI creation, which is somehow worse than looking at like a puppet creation, even if I can tell that it's some guy just walking on stilts. But that's not what you asked me. What you asked me was the Indominus, and I...
How do you feel about the Indominus Rex? Let me tell you about why the CGI sucks shit.
The reason I had to preface with that is because I'm not crazy that it's all CGI, but...
It's a genuine concern.
Because it is CGI.
Yeah.
It's a solid creation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think it looks really good. I think they could have gone seriously overboard with it, and even the design... There are elements of design that feel like they... maybe should feel overboard, like the fact that it can change color, it has teeth, it
has teeth.
You know, looks well, like it has like a lot of teeth. Like when you open it, like it's like a shark maw, right? It's not just a couple of fangs.
Yeah.
And then it has like kind of feather, kind of spikes running down its back. Like
it's maybe
there's
bulletproof.
A lot. Yeah, there's a lot going into this. It can change color. Like, there's a lot going into the design that could feel very overboard. But I think because they kind of... It's not like they keep it a complete secret, because you do see pretty good shots of it pretty early on in the film.
But it's fun.
But
The dramatic reveal over time.
yeah, you get like little shots here and there, and then eventually you get bigger and bigger, more holistic images of the thing. And by the time you see all of it, you've seen enough pieces where you believe they'd come together into that whole. And the way that it was intelligent. I mean, to the point of like the tracker feels a little suspension of disbelief-y.
I had something to say about that, actually, because I
Yeah.
thought about that too. I thought, for the most part, I think the intelligence works.
Agreed.
And then there's the whole, it clawed up the wall to escape and then changed its body temperature to trick everyone going. My thought process was, and I have no backing for this, I'm purely, filling in the plot holes. It claws up the wall and then hides, hoping that it would draw people in, not knowing it can change its body temperature, but it's a side effect of it trying to hide itself. So I'm fine with that. Now, with the tracking implant, there's no fucking way that it knows it's a tracking implant. However, I can believe the idea of it knowing there's something there and not liking it and removing it. It's like, well, then why does it wait for the people? That's an excellent question. That implies it knows that people are going to come to it. Again, my thought process. We know that velociraptors can set traps. My thought was that it's a piece of flesh that it's not going to eat, and it's waiting. It set a trap for anything to come and get this fresh piece of meat. It just happened to work out really well that it's the people tracking it. Is that a bit of a stretch? Maybe, but I think it works. It maintains its believable level of intellect, and it fits in with like the dramatic reveal that it clawed out its tracker. That's a headcanon, but I'm gonna believe that because I think it works.
Well, and I think what's interesting, and I'm going to accidentally loop back to Claire here for a second, because I think Claire and the Indominus Rex are intentionally paralleled and then contrasted through the film, in the sense that, like, well, okay, Claire wearing white is a nod to John Hammond for sure, but it's also, it's also, I think, kind of lines her up with the Indominus, because one of the first things that we say about it is it's white. It doesn't really look super white because it has more of like a gray tone to it a lot of the time, but like whatever, that's not that important.
It's a white dinosaur.
One of the things verbally said about its appearance is it's white, and Claire is standing there head to toe get up in white, right? And then there's the conversation about like the Indominus Rex is not social. It ate its sibling. Who else has siblings in this film?
I've never thought about this.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And the fact that Claire needs to focus on relationship, and the fact that the Indominus just kills for itself. Like, there's so much. I mean, one of the first things we see the Indominus do is tear apart that dinosaur family with Zach and Gray. Like, it's just a pack of dinosaurs hanging out. The Indominus comes in and kills a bunch of them. Yeah, Ankylosaurus, and kills a bunch of them. Like, I think not in a super elegant or even really prolonged way, because like you said, the moment Claire figures out the kids are in danger, she's all about that, right? And that is pretty much her whole arc, is she shifts from let me do my job to, you know what, I'm just gonna get the kids out of danger. That's my whole job now. So it's not a very prolonged arc, but she is very intentionally set up to be like the Indominus Rex, and then the Indominus Rex goes on to be the full-on villain of the film, whereas she has to turn around and she comes back and she like protects family.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Never thought about that ever.
And I think it's also kind of matches how Owen and the Raptors like respect each other a little bit, right? In the sense that like ultimately the loyalty that he shows to the Raptors is reflected back to him. So like they are definitely doing a little bit of character work through the dinosaurs with these two characters.
Yeah, I like that. Well, we're still on the Indominus just for another minute or two. Do you happen to know how much shit is in the Indominus Rex?
mean, they've already listed like 10 things in the film, and I imagine there's more.
There's so much shit in the Indominus Rex. It's honestly insane. It's super unnecessary. And so I have the list here. We know Tyrannosaurus Rex and Velociraptor. Also, worst twist ever. It's so obvious. Like, I mean, come on now. It's so obvious. And like,
don't be mad I forgot.
Okay, fine. Which is my for me, it's like Owen's like, I know why they wouldn't tell us what it's made of, and Barry's like, oh, why? Me, the other guy who works with raptors and knows about dinosaur intelligence. I can't tell that this, like, come on, please. Anyway.
Well, I mean, the moment it starts talking to them, I'm like, oh no, because you know I can put two and two together,
right?
But
anyway, so it's Tyrannosaurus Rex, Velociraptor, Carnotaurus, Giganotosaurus, Majungasaurus, Rugops, Picanonemanosaurus, Quilmosaurus, Vivenraptor, Therizinosaurus, that's where it gets its claws, Deinosuchus, which is a crocodile, that's where it gets its teeth, a cuttlefish, tree frog, pit viper. And so I actually found, Mac, the deleted scene script from the guys talking to Henry Wu after they decided they needed a new dinosaur. And it goes something like this. Hey, Dr. Wu, we are going to greenlight a new genetic hybrid dinosaur. Dr. Wu, it says here, takes a hit off a bong and goes, awesome. I'm going to mix a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Velociraptor. And the guy says, well, actually, Dr. Wu, that's not entirely necessary. It doesn't have to be the two most deadly things we have in the park. It could be something else. Like, then it says, Dr. Wu then takes a hit off of, takes a shot of tequila. No. I'm going to mix a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Velociraptor, every other carnivore we have on the park, including 3 that aren't in the park, the world's biggest crocodile, and the Therizinosaurus that has claws that are longer than spears. Guy says, Doctor, I cannot tell you how incredibly unnecessary that is. We just want a genetic hybrid. Dr. Wu then does a line of cocaine. And I'm going to give it superpowers. I'm going to give it the ability to change color, detect heat, and change its own body temperature output. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so fucking cool. It's going to be the best thing. It's like, Dr. Wu, no. We also find out in the show Camp Cretaceous, which does take, this first season takes place at the same time as the movie, which is really fun. There's a lagoon with bioluminescent parasaurolophuses. All this motherfucker had to do was make a bioluminescent...
My new favorite.
It's really pretty. All he had to do was make a bioluminescent T-Rex. And could have called it a day. But no, he mixed every kind of monster dinosaur that exists and turned it into this horrible, incredible movie monster thing.
So he took his cat canary analogy and went, let me just add Frankenstein's Godzilla to the mix. Like,
it's insane. There's so much. It's honestly frightening because
honestly, fantastic character. 10 out of 10. We needed him in this franchise.
He mixes in dinosaurs that they don't have, which is what fascinates me, because we do meet them later in the coming movies. But like the fact that he was sitting on that DNA and just, you know, had it. It's terrifying. But anyway, we are quickly running out of time. And there's at least 2 other big things we have to talk about, and there's like one other fun thing I want to talk about. We have to talk about the raptors, how they're utilized in this movie. What is your thought process on that? Because I was gonna say, my thing was when the trailer dropped and there was information for this movie back 10 years ago, it was said that they were gonna train the raptors, and a lot of people were like, that doesn't make sense. I don't like that. That's gross. My thing was, I'm okay with it as long as they turn on people, and that's what we got. So thoughts.
I was kind of in the same frame of mind, and I went through it very quickly, especially on this rewatch here, because it has been a while since I've seen this film. I remember thinking generally I liked it, but I don't know that I'd ever really watched it again. Anyway, point is, reframing the raptors as dogs happens super fast in this film. The moment we meet them, we got tail wagging, they're obeying commands. Like before we even see all of the raptor, we see that it's obeying commands. Somebody yells at it to stop and it stops, right? The eye contact is there. Now, the raptors have always made eye contact, but it's been more of like a, I see you, I'm going to kill you. And now it's more of a, I'm paying attention. What are you going to tell me? They get treats in that first scene, right? Like it's a very quick, they almost feel smaller too. I don't know what they are, but they feel a little bit smaller.
Because the last movie technically was at least a couple of generations or a different batch. We're back to the full-blown test tube raptors, so they are noticeably different. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just confirming.
And then one of them gets a very identifiable, almost primary color pattern to her. And not that I dislike any of these things, but all of them happen incredibly quickly the first time that we see the raptors in this film. And so my first kind of knee-jerk reaction, especially having just watched all the other films, was, whoa, this is a rebrand. Real quick. And then the rest of the scene is dedicated to Owen trying to explain to the guy that like, hey, no, these are still wild animals. I may have successfully trained them, but like, you need to respect the fact that they are not battle ready. They are not, even a good idea to put them into battle. Let's just chill for a second. And most of that conversation, while he is right, and while we as, audience members who benefit from watching the raptors in the previous films might back him up on hypothetically, the visual element of the raptors is very contradictory to that. Like, what we see is raptors that, while dangerous, ultimately do obey commands. The only thing that then finally kind of makes Owen's point for him is when the new guy falls into the pit and he has to go in and save him. And even Owen, he manages to wrangle them, but even Owen, when he turns his back, would have been dinosaur chow if it weren't for his incredibly fast reflexes.
I actually don't like that. That's the only thing that I really, really didn't like, because I think it undermines everything else.
I think there's maybe better ways to do this rebrand, but with the time that they have, it's honestly not bad. It's like a solid B+, like direction to take the Raptors in. And I think it works for the film, especially with what they're doing with the characters and whatnot. And if we're being honest, is a realistic angle at what would happen when you have intelligent, weaponized animals. This sort of thing would at least be in the works somewhere, right? The sort of exploratory, can we get it done sort of situation. I do think it's interesting that Owen likes Masrani because Masrani is the John Hammond of this film, and if anybody is the Malcolm of this film, it's Owen. But he seems to have a very positive working relationship with Masrani, which maybe is, again, another clue that Masrani is a little bit more manageable and workable than John Hammond ever was, just in the sense that he is taking the ethical responsibility of the park seriously, whereas John Hammond maybe never really did that. But I thought that was an interesting note to throw in there, in the sense that, like, we do have our sort of like person who takes advantage, which is Haskins, and then on the opposite end of that is the guy who runs the dinosaur park. So it's an interesting moment for sure. But anyway, point is, Raptors work pretty well in this film. I do like the fact that they ultimately are loyal, even though they do get persuaded for a second with the Raptor. Like, they go back and forth a little bit. I don't find that to be too inconsistent. I think that makes sense. I like the twist, particularly with like oh, that's a raptor. It's making raptor noises. It's talking to them. These are two very intelligent species meeting, and since the Indominus Rex has always been, antisocial, getting an army of raptors makes it terrifying. So, like, I'm okay with the small inconsistency of the fact that, like, one time they decide not to be loyal, the other time they aren't. Plus, I think they're, like, gunfire plays a significant role in the first moment, too, because they've not been gunfire trained, and that would break any animal.
Right. I also like that, really, if you watch that whole sequence, Owen's never in danger, really. And then when Barry says Blue's name, she stops. So, and I don't know which one blows up right away. I think it's Echo. When Echo sees Owen, it's nothing. It's just a little head tilt. Like, he was never in true danger. So I like that even when they're turned by the Indominus, the real alpha is consistent. I kind of like that idea that he was never going to be the one that they were going to eat. Because I think it makes it feel less like they keep changing sides and just more like who has more influence right now, mom or dad.
Right.
I understand what you're saying with how it's established very quickly, but I actually appreciate that because we've had 3 movies with basically the same antagonist and or secondary antagonist.
Fair.
So to start off right away and be like, hey, look, we're doing something different. These are not the bad guys this time. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. They're not going to come into it. I mean, we have our cool sequence in the end when they're eating people because it's velociraptors and sure. But it's not going to be something where they escape. We're going to let them out. It's not going to be something where they're tricking anybody. It's not going to be like
It's true.
They're doing something different, and I appreciate it. I think it's interesting. I have a headcanon as well that each one represents a movie because I swear blue is Jurassic World. I don't know all the names, but one of them is more orange, like the ones in Jurassic Park 2. One is more green, kind of like the ones that were in Jurassic Park 3. And one is more brown, like the ones from Jurassic Park 1. I think that's fun.
That's fun. That's fun.
That's purely headcanon. But I do enjoy that. I like the end when Owen whistles and they attack the Indominus. That's very fun. I like that.
The end sequence with the T-Rex and Blue is amazing.
I think this is a good segue because there's not much more to say about the Raptors other than I like how they're handled. I think they're cool. The motorcycle sequence is awesome. The training is awesome. I just don't like how they charge Owen when he rolls under the door. I feel like he should have walked back very slowly and the door should have closed between the two with tension. Not with a very clear, if the door hadn't closed in time, he would have been eaten. I think that undermines what the rest of the movie illustrates, which is that he's never really in danger with them.
That's a good point.
But the Rex reveal, the big comeback, Rexy's here, baby, and she's kicking ass. Oh, I love it. I love it. Claire waits way too long to run. She would have died. But otherwise, fantastic sequence.
So when I first watched this film, the fact that Claire wore these heels throughout the film was kind of an annoyance to me. And it is still kind of an annoyance to me, but I will say I think I've kind of turned like a 180 on this scene in particular with the heels. Not because they're practical. They're not. In real life, like you're saying, she waits too long to run and she's running in heels from a T-Rex. She doesn't make it, right? But we're already going to go ahead and assume we're suspending reality a little bit for that because she's running and using a T-Rex as a weapon, and that's awesome. So we're just going to let it happen, right? Cool. If we're in that mindset, Claire in the remnants of her outfit, including the heels, really adds to the drama of the scene.
Sure.
It adds to the tension quite a bit. If she were wearing a pair of boots, it would feel different. It really would. So, I don't know. It's a weird thing to, change an opinion on the second or third rewatch. But I do feel like the framing of it and the tension in it and the character moment that it is, I'll take it. I kind of like it. I feel like it adds to it.
It is really cool. And Rexy and Blue teaming up, I love. I don't care that they part ways without trying to kill each other. I'm all right with that. That's all good and fine.
They were tired.
They were tired. They were injured. Rexy was all beat. The first time I watched this, I really thought the Indominus might kill her. I was really scared.
I did too.
I was so worried. So I love all that. I love how Lowry lets it out. It's great. I love how it tears apart the Spinosaurus skeleton. That is very much a nod to Jurassic Park 3 and how the Spinosaurus killed a T-Rex. Some people thought that was the Spinosaurus. Like, they went and they killed it.
Itself.
Yes. They've confirmed that's not the Spinosaurus, but the T-Rex destroying the skeleton is a nod to fuck you, Spinosaurus. That is
I like it. I thought it was just more sort of like the real life version is breaking through the historical bones of it, right? Like the new version is here, baby.
It seems like 85% of the fan base thought they found the Spinosaurus, they killed it, and that was there on display. But no. Also, I think it's important. I really love that they include it just as a way to really confirm it's the same Rex. we see scars on Rexy from where the raptor was tearing her up in the first Jurassic Park movie. Love that. Love that so much.
How long would a T-Rex live for?
We don't know for sure. They talk about that in the next movie. They actually make a point of that, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. She's at most now, she's about 30. At most. I don't know how old she is in the first movie. But this is 20 years after that, so if she was around for 5-10 years, she was probably 4 or 5 in the first one. So she's about 25. I don't know how long dinosaurs would live. We'll talk about it next week. Getting to the end of this battle, though, we skipped over something. The introduction of the Mosasaur, which is amazing. Love his inclusion. Her inclusion. I do think it's crazy that there are beaches that are connected to the same lagoon, even though there's like 3 walls that separate the Mosasaur from the beach. Still insane. Still insane. Do you happen to have a thought? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, what?
No, it's fine. You go ahead and ask your question.
I was going to say, like, did you kind of catch the one potential inconsistency with the Mosasaurus? Because they actually did have an explanation for it. How are they cloning dinosaurs?
Oh, you can't get mosquito.
There wouldn't be a mosquito. Yeah. They actually wrote in World, they found a frozen one in the Arctic from late Cretaceous, so they were able to clone it from that. They thought about it. Someone was like, "You're not gonna get a mosquito bite of something that lives underwater," so they put in an explanation, which is amazing.
Yeah. I want to do a quick call out to Katie McGrath stunt for this.
I know.
Because, there's absolutely no reason for this character to get as brutalized as she does.
And yet it is a
fantastic moment.
Yeah.
And the reason it exists is because Katie McGrath is like, can I die in the most dramatic way possible?
That's amazing.
Can we make it more complicated? And can I be as much of the stunt person as possible? Like, she wanted it to be her. And so there are behind the scene clips of like her going up in the air. Like, they do that scene where she's following the boys in real time, where the camera spins around and she gets hooked up into a system while the camera is running and yanked into the air.
Oh my God.
Like, it's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah. To die. She was alive when the Mosasaurus grabs her, so she gets crushed with a pterodactyl in there at the same. Insane. We fully skipped over that as well. We don't have a lot of time. The pterodactyl sequence, spectacular. Spectacular.
It's pretty good.
The death of Mizrani and those 2 soldiers is heartbreaking and awful. And then the idea, because that's the thing that I think is the coolest part of this whole movie, is the idea of what would happen if Jurassic Park happened, but Jurassic Park was functioning. There are people there,
right?
Because you could argue we can't relate to these characters. They're nameless characters, but we've all been to a theme park. We can relate to this idea of being at a theme park and everything goes to shit. And that's awesome. Love that. The pterodactyls and the dimorphodons, amazing.
There are stories within this movie that you could tell if you wanted to, in the sense that, like, the survivors of the Jurassic World incident would have so much to say. You could do a lot of cool stuff with that, actually. But
I mean, they kind of made a show about it. That's partially Camp Cretaceous.
That's true.
It's really good.
Point.
I've not finished it, but I really like what I've seen of it.
I should watch it.
You should. Pterodactyl sequence is awesome. Mosasaurus is awesome. We get all the returning dinosaurs except Dilophosaurus, unless you want to count hologram form. Quick note, that lagoon thing that the people are in on the kayaks, just in the water with dinosaurs, that's not safe. Don't love that. Don't know why they think that's okay. The gyrosphere thing, love that in concept. That's still super not safe. That's insane. You wouldn't do that with rhinos. I don't think you'd be doing that with Triceratops, Stegosaurus, and a bunch of brontosauruses. That's insane. That's crazy.
It looks really cool, though.
It looks really cool. I do like it.
I like it. And it's a fun way to redo, like, the
car sequence.
The car sequence. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
I think it works pretty well for that.
Let's see. A quick note on Zach and Gray's parents. They make fun of Zach for having a long goodbye with his girlfriend. He's like, "Oh, you gonna be okay? You heartbroken? You guys are getting divorced. I'm not gonna take any relationship advice from you two. Shut the fuck up." Also,
100% agree.
Way to jinx the whole trip, Mom. if something chases you, run. I hope you need therapy for the rest of your life because damn. I mean, she's probably not well, so she's beating herself up enough as is.
I'd say if there is a writing weak point, it kind of is Zach, because they don't really settle on what they want that character to be.
Yeah.
Like, when you first meet him, he's saying a long goodbye to his girlfriend, that indicates that he's like a sweetheart who is devoted to his girl, right? But then, like,
he's hitting
at
on
the
all
park,
these other girls.
He's kind of flirting on girls and watching them.
It's weird. It's gross.
Like, maybe we're trying to go for, like, typical teenage boy behavior here, but, like, it doesn't translate well.
No.
Agreed. Like, I don't think that really, like, to say that that's typical behavior is problematic, I think, inherently. Like, so, and then they have that line that's sort of like a throwaway, like, you know, Zach's can be mean sometimes, and yet we really don't see him be aggressively mean ever in this film. He's dismissive and cynical,
but
he never like gets rude, and every time he feels like he crosses a line, he walks it back. Like, he never pushes so far. Like, a lot of the times with characters that are grumpy, that like don't want to be grumpy, what you'll do is you'll have them cross lines, then get upset when they realize they cross the line and storm off. That never happens once with Zach. Zach is in it. He's like trying to fix any situation, or at least lessen the problem that he might have accidentally created, right? So, like, if there is a weakness in the writing, I think it does kind of center on Zach, and I think it's because they didn't decide what they wanted to do with him. What he ends up being, I really like, which is that loyal brother who is not like flawless, but is, you know, he cares for his little bro, and then they end up in a rebel situation. He's the older one, so he takes charge a little bit, right? Like, it works out really well. The fact that they end up being competent enough to like start one of the Jeeps is a little crazy, but all the characters in this film are pretty competent. I mean, even the super rich guy is learning how to fly a helicopter, and that comes in pretty handy. Doesn't work out great, but he knows how to fly a helicopter, he does his best. So, like, that's kind of par for the course in the terms of like what these characters can do. So they successfully get the Jeep going. They kind of save themselves, if we're being honest.
That's true.
Really cool. So in terms of like weaknesses, the only thing I can think of is that they just need to pick a direction with the character, and even though they didn't pick a direction, what he ends up being is pretty cool anyway.
I'll take that.
So, yeah.
Good stuff. We're kind of at our time. I want to end real quick with just a quick list of fun Easter eggs, just in case you didn't catch them all. So both on the train, Zara and Lowry on his desk, they both have Ian Malcolm's book, Chaos Theory.
I missed that entirely.
Mr. DNA pops up. I'm sure you saw him, which is great. On the hologram Earth, though, we see a Gallimimus skeleton running. That is the Gallimimus skeleton that they CGI'd back in the day that started it all. That's my favorite Easter egg maybe of all time, because without that Gallimimus skeleton, none of this would be here. None of it.
Right.
I love that it's there for a second, but it's there. Obviously, we get to see the original visitor center. We use the tarp that fell down as a torch. We see the goggles. When Zach and
caveman painting moment is very cool. We didn't even get to talk about that. Keep going.
When Zach and Gray run away from Zara, there's a kid whose shirt is specifically made to look like the Barbasol can that Nedry uses to steal the embryos. That's a deep cut one, but it's there.
Crazy.
That's amazing, isn't it? Isn't that great? Because Owen is so involved with like the mutual respect thing, a lot of people thought he was the kid that Alan traumatized at the beginning of the first Jurassic Park. They confirmed that he's not, but there were some people that were having fun with that and thought maybe that was a thing. Briefly on Henry Wu's computer screen, we do see another dinosaur he was working on. It is the Stegosaurus with a Triceratops head. It's there for a split second, then it's gone. I'm trying to think if there's any other like big Easter eggs that I'm forgetting. I don't know if this is an Easter egg or not, but Hodgkins, he talks about how the wolf took a chunk out of his wife's arm, and then the first thing that happens to him is a velociraptor bites his arm off. That's awesome. Love that. Those are the big ones for me. The
Jimmy Buffett one.
I was gonna say that was the next one I was gonna say. The guy who runs away with the 2 margaritas is Jimmy Buffett.
That's amazing. You don't even really see his face. He's just the margarita guy.
It's him. He's the margarita guy. So yeah, there's that. Oh, the guy, the really badass asset containment unit guy. The blood falling on his wrist and then going two different directions. That's a reference to the water droplets on Ellie's hand that Ian does with the whole like, because it hits the same place and goes two
That's
different directions.
crazy.
That's intentional. You could Google that. That's a thing that they did.
That's crazy.
That's also a fun little nitpick that people point out. It's really cool that we could see their heart rates, but their heart rates don't change despite being in a high stress situation. That would have been fun if they did add that. I think that's. I know there's more Easter eggs, technically speaking, but that's all the really, really big ones that I can think of right now. Oh, there's John Hammond statue. I mean, we see that. That's cool.
There's a massive mosquito and amber statue that they hide behind at one point. That's fun. Cool. I mean, it's obvious, but
yeah, we talked about the Spinosaurus a little bit and how the raptors might be a little nod to each movie.
Were they on the same location that they were on in the first film? Because a lot of those places looked really familiar.
So we don't explore the entire island in the first movie. They did. We see on the map they did block off most of where the old park was. There was there's some overlap for sure because like of where the cars go and all that jazz.
I kind of meant more just like filming locations.
Oh, that I have no idea. Not a clue.
Yeah.
I know that they filmed some of it in Hawaii. If they did it again, probably.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I think my brain was intentionally looking for connections that may not have been there, but it felt like. I don't know. Like it wasn't even like the same framing. It just that hill they're on with the Brachio or Brontosaurus.
I think they're
Brontosauruses.
Yeah.
Brontosaurus. That one feels a lot like the hill they're on when
the Gallimimuses.
When we first see like Grand Ellie first see.
I see.
There's even a particular tree that just looks kind of the same, but it could be that tree species in the same environment, and it's a hill, right? And my brain is just like,
I don't know.
But then, like
that scene where they're on
the scene where they're on the beach looks like the beach that the family vacations on in the second film.
That's a different island, so that's more coincidence.
That's a different one.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking more filming location than it is like again,
sorry, I keep getting confused. Yeah. I don't know for sure what they did as far as filming goes.
Basically, it happened twice. Me going, that looks like the same place, which has made me delusional in believing that I can now spot a location from filming.
You might. I don't know. I can't deny it. I can't confirm for sure.
Yeah. No.
So we are at our time. You know, this is not one of our longer ones. We've done longer ones, but Tis a Whale, obviously. I mean, I love this movie. I think it's the second best one for sure. I can say that. Can't wait for next week. I think it's severely underrated, but so far, Jurassic Park 1, then Jurassic World, then the second one, then the third one. That's my list currently. So
that stands up. I think because Jurassic Park is just iconic.
Yes, there's no beating.
But I think this one holds that expectation.
Really good. It's so fun.
If not at least surpassing it in some ways. I don't think all the ways, but in some ways yeah. So I don't know. It's an excellent, I guess, remake or continuation of the franchise.
New era.
I am 100%,
same place, new era. I like it. I like it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our time. Thank you for listening. Bye now.
Bye.